working on the challenge list mutability question 1, we're told to write a function called verify IDs, and this function takes in two lists as arguments and returns a boolean if those lists have the same ID. So we're told the first thing is that we are going to have our function verify IDs. It takes in two lists as parameters or arguments, so I can go ahead and just get that done. And what I want to do is I want to find the ID for list 1, and I want to find the ID for list 2, and I want to go ahead and say if list 1 ID is the same as list 2 ID, we're going to return true. And otherwise, we will simply return false. Now, the last thing that we need to do here is we need to actually get the IDs for each of the lists. So I can say that list 1 and list 2. And now my function should work correctly. But without very much context, this isn't particularly insightful. So let's jump into a REPL and sort of talk a little bit about the implications of this. So if I go into a Python REPL and go ahead and empty it out of all its contents, I'm going to put my function that we just wrote in, and then I'm going to go ahead and declare a list, and I'm going to make that list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Certainly I could have used a range function to do that, but I'm looking for a list, and then I want to go ahead and call list.append 7. So I guess that's not particularly useful, right? Let's check out list 2, right? And this one we can say 2, 3, 4. Let's make the contents the same. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So now if I print the results of verify IDs with, I need to differentiate those lists from each other, list 1 and list 2. I can go ahead and see that this should return false, right? Because those are two different lists. Now, I'm going to go ahead and instead of doing that, right, let's actually just print the ID of two lists. So first I want to print the ID of list 1, and then I'm actually going to mutate list 1 by adding 7. And then I will go ahead and into that I will append, or I've already appended it, right? And I still want the ID of 1. So we should be able to see that the list IDs, the ID, the memory, this is a numerical representation of a physical memory location in the computer. I can see that these are the same, even though I have mutated the list, right? I have added a new object onto the list, so its contents aren't exactly the same, but it still has the same ID. So I could do that inside of this function, and that's sort of what we're getting at when we talk about list mutability here, that we can check the ID of two different lists or the same lists and see that those physical memory locations, those IDs will remain the same regardless of whether we add or take items out of either of those lists. So that's the challenge for list mutability question 1. Hopefully that clears things up about how the ID function works, as well as mutability as it concerns to lists particularly.